Hello, everybody. Andy Jacob here with the DotCom Magazine Entrepreneur Spotlight Series. I have a unique and important show today, and I'm so excited to invite our guest on the show. We've been waiting to get Megan on the show for a number of weeks. And of course, when we talk about empowerment and we talk about what's going on in social justice and the issues involved in today's world, there are certain leaders that are really taking charge. And one of those leaders is on the show today. Her name is Megan Fuciarelli, and she is the founder and, listen to this, Chief Empowerment Officer at US². I love it. She's got a great sign behind her that just makes all the difference for everybody in the world. Megan, we have so many questions. I've only slotted 30 minutes for you. I mean, if I went through all of your background and experience and accolades, I'd be here for 30 minutes just talking about all that. So let's get started. Megan, welcome to the DotCom Magazine Entrepreneur Spotlight Series today.
Thank you so much, Andy. Looking forward to it.
You've built a great company. You have people all over the world involved. Congratulations. But as we do, before we even get into the questions, let's do what we've become famous for by pulling the lens back to 30,000 feet, Megan, and tell us about what's going on at US² and what it's all about.
Yeah, so at US², we are busy changing the world. So just like my wall behind me says, we want everyone to be the change in the world that they wish to see. And that's what we do. So we help humanize the conversation and take away the shame and guilt around biases and have those really deep conversations around social justice issues. And then we empower those that we work with to see that change and make that change grow in their companies, in their organizations, and in their homes.
Yeah, it's powerful. I love it so much. It's right in the middle of it all right now. The world's changing at lightning speed. When we think about it, Megan, what types of companies reach out to you and they've heard about you, they've heard about US², they say, hey, Megan, we need to empower our workforce. We need to take a different look at things. What does that first conversation look like?
Yeah, the first conversation is really just talking to the client and finding out what they're currently struggling with and what they're currently seeing in their organization. So we are 100% referral based. So everyone who comes to us is because they've heard about the work we've done for others and the work that we've done across the globe. So we are based in Michigan, but we are a global company. And really that first conversation is just listening to what they've done so far, what they hope to accomplish, and why it's important for them to accomplish that now. Because we need to know what the urgency is. We also need to make sure that everyone we work with are in it for the reasons that we believe to be true change agents.
Yeah, I love it. When I think about you, I think about the word educator. That's the word that sort of stands out for me when I've read through what you've done. I've watched you, on the various media outlets. You're really an educator. When we think about it, what's the big problem that many companies are having right now that they need to reach out to a company like yours and say, hey, we need some help?
Yeah, and it's funny that you say the educator component because I'm actually a retired school superintendent and I was in the school system for a really long time. And that's what sets us apart at US² is that we do take on the educator lens. We meet people where they're at. And the number one thing that we solve for companies that we work with or school districts that we work with is we help them have open, honest conversations without guilt, without shame, and truly help them see and hear everyone's perspective. So we help organizations who are having a little bit of a struggle between different groups or different stakeholder groups, or just not feeling like there's a wide range of diversity within their organization. We help them look at what the reasoning for that is, rather than just fixing the problem. We want to find out why the problem occurred in the first place.
Yeah, it's so fascinating when you say that, because when we look at a company, if you have different people from different perspectives, different places, different backgrounds, different experiences, and you're able to listen to their viewpoints, it makes a company much better and it makes it stronger. And for C-level executives and CEOs to listen to not only their clients, but the people within the organization just makes all the sense in the world. There's another thing that comes to mind when I think about you, Megan, besides being an educator. I sort of think of you and your team as coaches. What's the what's the coaching angle here where your mindset goes to the fact that you want to coach these teams to becoming better and uplifted within our society?
Yeah, so we use a 3-stage process. And just like my name is Chief Empowerment Officer, I am not the Chief Executive Officer. I am the one responsible for empowering everyone on my team and all of our clients. But the 3-step process we use is explore, which is that exploration stage, really figuring out who each other are within the coaching model. And this is our 3-step process for the coaching model. Explore, engage, which is where we're doing the work together, we're having conversations, and then empower, which is making sure that everyone has the skills to be successful after we leave. As a consultant, as a consulting firm, we're not truly doing our job unless we're empowering the clients who work with us to be able to do the work far beyond when we're working with them.
Yeah, that's so powerful. You know, you teach them, but then at the end of it, they're able to continue using what you've taught them to get better. So it's a continual cycle of success and empowerment and becoming great. When we think about it, something that's very interesting, I think, when we were talking at it around the table at DotCom magazine, is what you do really improves productivity in the workplace and improves the culture. So let's talk about that, because that's very interesting.
Yeah, so we actually use the term JEDI rather than DE&I strategies. We use the term JEDI, and it stands for justice, equity, diversity, and inclusion. So the reason why all of those are critical and important for the work is if people feel a sense of justice, then they're able to have more open conversations around equity and inclusion, which ultimately leads to more productivity. So think about it, Andy. If you've been in a situation where you feel like you're a valued member of the team and your voice is included, then you want to contribute more because you feel like a valuable member of the team. So what we do as part of our team is come in and help make sure that everyone's voices are heard, which leads to a stronger sense of productivity and then ultimately profitability as well.
Yeah, that's powerful. When I think about sports teams, you know, people that are valued on a sports team, whether it's high school, little league, college, professional level, when they feel valued and they feel that they're being heard, and that, you know, of course they want the coach to coach them and they want to be on a great team and they want to, you know, win the championship. But at the same time, it's important for them to recognize that they're part of this group that's sort of, while everyone's different, they all have a common goal within the company. Is that sort of the high idea here?
Yeah, what we do in that first stage of reflection, right? So we're really reflecting on what the current reality is. Not only do we want to know what their current reality is, we also want to know what their goals are. Because then in that second phase, when we're responding to that, we're able to set up structures like training and whatever is needed to get them to where they want to be. But if we have a common vision, a common mission in place for all people on the team, not just our workers, our employees, but also those we serve, whether it's a B2B or a B2C, who are we serving? How are we meeting the needs of everyone in the organization to truly be the change that we want to see?
Yeah, I love it. Let's break it down a little bit for the entrepreneurs watching the show, Megan. Let's just say there's someone, they have a 30-person staff and they're, let's call it B2C business. Maybe all the people are now coming back into the office or the warehouse to provide the service or the products that their company is known for. Let's kind of pull the lens back and have a sort of a make-believe sort of whiteboarding game here. So I'm a CEO, I've got 30 people on my staff. How do I start doing what you do on my own, moving toward having this higher awareness within my company?
Yeah, if your ultimate goal is to have a higher level of awareness and to be more inclusive and equitable within your organization, we actually launched the CARES certification program 6 years ago. And that CARES certification program actually is the first program and certificate licensed, bonded, patented, and registered by the US government. So organizations can become certified as a CARES practitioner or a CARES organization simply by going through the trainings and then writing an action plan as an organization. So that is one step for companies from small. We have companies as small as 5 to 7 employees, all the way up to billion-dollar companies who are going through the certification process. And what that looks like is a set number of your people on your team go through trainings. It is 5 modules, and it starts with courage. So how do we have those courageous conversations? We move into acceptance. How do we understand the different people that we interact with? Then we move into respect, and we talk about relationships and how personal and professional relationships impact one another. Then we move into empathy and how to be inclusive in an environment. And the last module is success, which leads to accountability and sustainability. So it's not just learning information and then filing it on a shelf, because we all have this infamous bookshelf behind us, right? It's actually taking the work and creating an opportunity for an action plan to take place and true change to happen within an organization. So that is one of the easiest turnkey ways of starting the work immediately. It also holds the client responsible for making sure that things actually come to fruition.
Wow, that's so interesting. I mean, that multiple step plan really makes sense. When people sign up for this program and they're involved, does it all take place in work hours, or the people have sort of homework that they have to take home? How does all that work?
Yeah, so I'm glad you asked. We have 2 different options for the certification program. We have one, which is a hybrid module. So about half of the coursework is done on your own time. So if you're like me, you like to have your bunny slippers on and be sitting in front of your computer at midnight, you can do that. Or if you're someone who prefers to have real live engagement, then we offer another option that is an 8-hour course, fully on Zoom or virtual. And that is done to be able to have interactions and conversation. The hybrid module, though, we still have an in-person session or a virtual session. Instead of it being 8 hours, it's only 4 hours. So that way we do some of the pre-work, some of the coursework in advance, and then we always meet in person with groups of 25 people or less. So that allows for everyone to get to know one another, to work through some of those practices that we teach, so they have an opportunity to apply those.
Very interesting. You know, when I think about you, I think of a forward thinker, someone that is somewhat of a zeitgeist. You know, you're thinking forward, not backward. You're looking through the windshield instead of the rear view mirror. What's the workplace going to look like in the future? I know, what are the big changes that you would like to see happen and you feel should happen in the workplace?
Yeah, so as we continue, I think we're going to continue to see businesses, organizations be virtual as much as possible. Obviously, school systems will go back in person, but I envision a lot of corporate and small businesses, as much as possible, as long as they're B2B, going virtual and staying virtual. B2C, obviously, we'll still have retail shops, but I think we're going to have a lot of online shops. The biggest push with what I envision and how US² supports that new future vision is, what do we want to make sure we're doing to allow everyone an opportunity to be inclusive in the workplace, and also allowing organizations to show their level of social responsibility. Because if we look at our society in general, it's not just in the US, it's globally. We are having social crises happen on a regular basis. Nothing that is happening right now is new. But at the same time, people are treating a lot of this as if it's new because they have not been exposed to it. So our job at US² is to help people realize that just because you didn't know it was happening doesn't mean it wasn't happening. And it also doesn't make you a bad person if you didn't know. But now that you know, we must do better. And we have 7 core principles. That last one is simply put, once you know better, do better. Once we know what's happening and once we're exposed to that and we have those conversations, it's up to us and it is our responsibility to do better within that.
Yeah, I like that. That last principle is very, very interesting. You know, you've become known for putting a great team together at US². I mean, you have some of the best working with you, you know, internationally. They're all over the world. What's the key thing for you, Megan, in terms of making a hire? I mean, what are you looking for? Because you have such a sort of passionate about what you do. You have such an expertise what you do. I know you like to walk the walk and talk the talk. So it's interesting to think about hiring practices. Who are you looking for to join your team? What's the thing about them that makes them sort of US² material?
Yeah, I appreciate that question. So I wish I had the magic wand or the potion to be able to share with everyone. Really what we look for is it's all about the passion. And you can't teach someone the passion and the drive and the desire to want to do this work, but you can teach skills. So we focus on the passion behind it. And we've been very, very humbled throughout the process to have people approach us and say, we want to work with you, or we saw you here. Can we do some work together? We have some great partnerships going with other organizations where we share people and we share ideas and we do brainstorm collaboratives. That's a phenomenal aspect. But the number one piece when you're growing a team, especially a team that is diverse, is remembering that there's not one specific qualification. We have people on all sides of the spectrum on our team, different political affiliations, different genders, different races, different religions. And we believe that that is what truly brings the diversity of the company and diversity of thought, not just diversity of identity.
Yeah, I like it. If I'm a CEO and let's go back to this 30-person company example we're talking about. How do I know if I'm cutting the mustard? How do I know if I'm getting it done? How can I do a gut check to make sure that I have the type of workforce that you're promoting at the company?
Yeah, so there's a couple different things. First, if you just want to personally do a gut check as a CEO, then it's about looking at who is on your leadership team versus who is on your team as a whole. Because if your leadership team looks very similar to you or to one person on the team, or there's one demographic represented, but your team as a whole is more diverse, then we might need to look at some representation issues, right? Look at how your stakeholders are receiving you versus your competitors. So for example, if you are in a specific line of work, is one of your competitors hitting one market a little bit better than you are? What is that? What does that look like? What could you do? Because it's about looking at ourselves first, just like our name says, understand self and then unite society. We can't focus on what everyone else is doing until we really look at what we are doing to contribute to that. That's one. The second piece is if you are saying, you know what, I don't know where to look, because the first thing we can do as a CEO is to realize where our strengths are as well as where our weaknesses are, or our just lack of awareness. At US², we actually offer equity audits and needs assessments. And with those equity audits and needs assessments, we will come in and collect all of that data for you. Because when you're inside the company in the fishbowl, it's really hard to see what's outside of that because you're on the inside. So we will actually do that work for you through both qualitative data and quantitative data to see exactly what's going on in your organization.
Yeah, it's interesting. And of course, I'm going to ask a naive question. Some people might be saying to themselves, I still don't get it. I mean, is it based on a percentage? Like, is the percentage of the population, should that equate to the percentage of that representation in my workforce? You know, how does all that work? Because we have so much information that we're trying to get through. Sometimes entrepreneurs just need something simple to help them understand it. Is there a way to be simple, you know, with regard to this idea about the representation, the percentages, the quotas, and things like that?
So we don't go off of quotas. We don't go off of numbers or quotas. It's about how do we impact the people we serve. Now, there are other organizations out there who will tell you that you should represent the culture or the climate or the stakeholders that you're trying to reach. We don't necessarily believe that piece. What we follow is how are you making your stakeholders or your customers or your clients feel? How do they receive the information that you're sharing? It's not about a set numbers, and we actually will vet our clients. We vet our clients. If they're looking for a checkbox and they just want a quick checklist to go, they're not really doing it for the change. They're doing it to look good. So we don't encourage the checkbox mentality or the quotas. We encourage the idea of what is going to help you get to where you want to be, what change do you want to see, and how can you get there? And we help people create those key success indicators to help them get to that point.
Yeah, that's pretty interesting. I mean, when we think about it, what portion of this idea, this megatrend, I'll call it, this important megatrend, has to do with the clientele? In other words, let's go back to my 30-person company just for the example, but my clients are a certain group of people. There's a certain group that buy my product and my service. So as an entrepreneur, maybe I'm thinking to myself, I want to have representation, a high representation of those types of people in my organization, on my team, perhaps, because maybe that relationship might work better in terms of my sales process to help them buy my product or service. Am I thinking about this wrong or incorrectly, or is that a way to think about it maybe correctly? I'm a little confused here.
Yeah, no, I appreciate that. So we often will see that where a clientele will be a certain demographic and people will say, well, we need to hire people who fit that demographic. If you are specifically a company that only has one avatar or one demographic that you serve, you absolutely want representation on your team that can speak to the clientele's experience that you're servicing. So if I am speaking to, let's say, a Jewish organization, and I don't have anyone Jewish on my team, it's going to be really hard to be able to relate and understand. And we have to ask a lot of questions and really be willing to listen and learn before we come in, right? Now, at the same time, if they're coming and they want to know about how to be more inclusive of everyone and not just religion, then we can absolutely deliver that product or service. So we don't encourage people to mold or to shape their business or to be a chameleon based on who they're serving, because that's not being true to their core beliefs or core principles. If a company sets their core values, core beliefs, core principles, what their vision and mission is, make sure that you hire people on your team who can deliver that mission, not only because it's what they believe, but it's because the people you're serving are going to listen to that person. And it's a human nature piece. It's bias that we listen to people who either look a certain way or act a certain way. So you have to be mindful of that. At the same time, don't be a chameleon within your business structure, because that's not being authentic to this work. And when we're doing Jedi work or social justice work, we cannot be wishy-washy. We have to be very clear and concise and consistent. Otherwise, it's not going to truly be that change that we want to see.
Yeah, that's fascinating. That's great piece of advice and a great piece of information for the entrepreneurs watching the show to understand this much better. Megan, one thing that stands out for me when I think about this amazing business you've built, this coaching, this education that you do, it feels almost like it's a sports team. Like there's some sports analogies here, because there's a lot of coaching going on, and there's a lot of uplifting, and there's a lot of teamwork, and there's a lot of understanding. And these are all things that are great components of a great sports team as well. Did you learn something from playing sports or from participating younger in something, or how did you come across or sort of formulate this idea that's either educational or sports sort of put together in a ball with education and sports? Was there any sports in your background, or you just sort of saw this need and you just attacked it and it just kind of came out as a coaching practice?
Yeah, so not sports, definitely not sports. I was the furthest from sports that I could ever be. So definitely not that. What it was for me is, this is the 7 core principles that we have for US² are things that have come to me throughout my many years on this earth. And we believe that every single person has struggled with some form of oppression or marginalization. Someone has discriminated everyone in this world about something, whether it's size, gender, sexuality, religion, race. That is something that many of us, if not all of us, have experienced at one point in our lives. I was marginalized quite a bit throughout my life. I had experiences where I was treated different because I was a woman. I had experiences where I was treated different because I was, a different size. I was very overweight. And then I lost weight and I was treated very differently, right? There are so many components of who we are and how we become the person we are that we are treated differently because of. So when I wanted to do this work, it was truly about the change and being the change. And it was about helping people be human in these conversations. Because if we can humanize that concept and have those open conversations, I was raised in an environment where everyone looked like me. Everyone acted like me. Everyone believed similar viewpoints as me. So I thought that that was the way the world was. And it wasn't until I went away to college that I realized that I was very sheltered and I was not exposed because our education system doesn't teach about anyone else other than people who look like me. I learned all the great things about what my ancestors did. I didn't learn about what other ancestors did, right? So those are pieces that I learned, and I wanted to make sure that that wasn't going to happen in the future. And I knew that the best way to do this was to do this with a team of people. And I have had the luxury of working with some phenomenal people throughout the years, over the last 24 years of doing this work, bringing new people onto the team, whether it's as a full-time W-2 employee or as a 1099 subcontractor. We've had the opportunity to build a really large, robust team. But it was just my own personal experiences and working with some great people. I am the furthest away from sports that I could probably be.
Yeah, that's great. Of course, you learned along the way your passion and you decided to turn it into something wonderful. Now, let's talk about entrepreneurship because we have a lot of younger entrepreneurs watching the show. They're watching you, Megan. You've built this great company. And sometimes these younger entrepreneurs or older entrepreneurs, we don't want to discriminate against age. There's entrepreneurs my age, and I'm old, that are starting a company and they hit a roadblock or they hit a pothole in the road, they hit a wall. I'm hoping you might be able to share to the younger or older entrepreneurs that are hitting a roadblock right now, what it takes to get through a roadblock as a fellow entrepreneur, what it takes to get through a pothole in the road, come out the other side, having said to yourself, I'm really happy I went through that roadblock because that's going to make me better.
Yeah. So whenever I hit any kind of a struggle, I take myself back to my vision and my purpose. So why did I start US² in the first place? Because if I can go back to that vision and that mission and that purpose for what we do, then it reminds me of why it's important for me to get back on the road and to not hit that roadblock. So that helps tremendously. The other thing is to remember that what got you this far will not get you where you need to go, right? So what got you here will not get you there. So sometimes we have to shift course. Sometimes we have to take a detour because what got us to this point right now today won't necessarily take us to where we want to be tomorrow.
Wow, what great advice. I mean, if you're an entrepreneur, rewind what Megan just said. She kind of gave you a Harvard, Stanford MBA right there about entrepreneurship. And I love that idea where, there's this old saying, if you keep on doing what you've always done, you're going to keep on getting what you've always got. And as entrepreneurs, we want to keep getting more. We want to keep becoming better. We want to keep becoming more enlightened. We want to keep serving our clients and our customers in the most powerful way possible. I mean, what a great thing you're doing, Megan. I love the sign behind you. It's awesome. Be the change you wish to see in the world. I mean, really makes all the sense in the world. You're a great leader, a great spokesperson for obviously US², and you're the Chief Empowerment Officer. And what I loved earlier, what you said, Megan, is you're empowering your team. Again, it goes back to that analogy. You're empowering the people that work at US², which then in turn allows them to empower the companies that you serve. And the fact that you're a referral-based business, I mean, it's just remarkable. I mean, you get referrals all the time from people that have had great successes with your company, and they tell other CEOs and leaders that then reach out to you and they could put on this wonderful system that you've had and this wonderful certification even that you've created and this wonderful way to think about the world in a very encouraging way. So Megan, I wanted to thank you for coming on the show today. It's been a remarkable interview, and thank you so much for coming on the .com Magazine Entrepreneur Spotlight Series.
Thank you so much. I appreciated my time with you today.